Hello friends, welcome back. This is John in the United Kingdom, broadcasting to Elton John fans throughout the world. And as you can see, we're in festive mood here at my broadcasting headquarters as I suggest to you an Elton John Christmas album made up entirely of songs sung by Elton John. How is this possible, you might well ask? Well, I've been looking around in the archives and online, and I reckon I've found 12 songs recorded by Elton which would fit on to this festive album. Some of them you may have heard of, some of them you may not have heard of. I'm going to suggest a running order, and below I've created a YouTube playlist so you can listen to them for yourselves. Now, a couple of them are slight cheats because we're opening up side one of this fantasy Christmas album with this track here, Cold as Christmas. Now, Cold as Christmas comes from this album, Too Low for Zero. Pretty good album of Elton's. It's not really about Christmas though. It's a Bernie Taupin lyric which talks about a couple who go on holiday in July, in the middle of the year. They become kind of alienated from each other, and the mood is described as cold as Christmas in the middle of the year. Pretty decent setting by Elton, quite an enjoyable track this one. So I'm kicking off this festive album with track number one, Cold as Christmas. Okay, track number two on the fantasy album, we're going to Madman Across the Water for the track Leave On. Now, you could say this is a bit of a cheat as well, but let's listen to this lyric from Bernie Taupin. He's talking about leave on. He was born a pauper to a pawn on a Christmas day when the New York Times said God is dead and war's begun. Alvin Tostig has a son today. One of Bernie's most obscure but enchanting lyrics with a fantastic setting from Elton, and what a wonderful production on this. Still singing this song today, of course. It's an involving story. We don't quite know who this figure is, but it's got this intriguing mention of Christmas Day, so it sneaks on to our Christmas album. Now, do you know any other obscure Elton lyrics that mention Christmas or Christmas themes? There's just an interesting one for you to think about. Comment below if there's anything I've missed. I'd really like to find out some more. Track number three on the fantasy album is going to be Calling It Christmas, a duet that Elton recorded with Joss Stone in 2004. Now, Joss Stone is an English singer-songwriter who has been very successful in her own right. This is an Elton John and Bernie Taupin composed song. It focuses mainly on the sort of Christmas story, the traditional sort of nativity story, bringing elements of that. Elton takes the lead vocal. Joss Stone comes in with some improvised vocal, quite elaborate, perhaps too elaborate for everybody's taste on that. This is quite a pleasant listen, actually. I perhaps enjoy Elton's vocals a little bit more than Joss Stone's, but an interesting song. Quite a good video has been produced about this as well, focusing on the Christmas truce in the First World War. And that's a subject that's been taken up by other songs, such as Pipes of Peace from Paul McCartney, and a wonderful song called Christmas 1914 by the English folk singer Mike Harding. Check that one out if you've got a moment. Absolutely fantastic song based on his own poem. So this one, quite enjoyable. If you don't know it, give it a listen. I haven't rated it before, so I'm going to rate it fairly good and give it 5. Track number 4 on my fantasy album is going to be Merry Christmas, the duet with Ed Sheeran, which came out last Christmas, December 2021. Now, this was written by Ed Sheeran and Elton, and also Steve Mack, their producer. It topped the UK charts, and it became Elton's 9th #1 single in the UK. It's got quaint lyrics. It's a very cheery song. There's bells there, there's choirs there. It's got really everything you would expect on a Christmas record. It's got some cheesy lyrics like "The fire is raging on." Perhaps it's not quite the sing-along song that they were hoping for. It's not as memorable as perhaps other Christmas songs, but perhaps we need to move on a few years before we reflect back and see whether we can remember what it was like. I actually prefer the fade out part right at the end. I think that's quite a strong part of the song that could have perhaps been moved up a little bit more prominently. Now then, the proceeds from the song went in the UK to charities. and there's a separate comedy version which I will reference later on in this video. The video they made for this kind of paid tribute to other films of a Christmas nature, such as Love Actually and other Christmas hits. So it's kind of a pastiche, a bit of fun, and if you watch it, they're obviously having a great time doing it, so fair enough. Now, apparently, Ed and Elton wrote 3 Christmas songs. So do we have 2 more of them to come? Well, let's wait in excitement for that. Overall, I enjoy listening to this. I'm going to rate it as a good song and give it 6 out of 10. Now, number 5 on side 1 of my fantasy album is going to be White Christmas, the classic song from the movie, of course, sung originally by Bing Crosby. Elton has done a couple of versions of this. I'm picking the 1999 solo version. Now, it's a bit of a mystery, this one for me, and you may be able to help me. Ronnie Friend, who puts a lot of Elton's music up on YouTube, has connected this with Elton John's Christmas Party, which is an album I'll talk about in a while. But when you go to the track listing of that album, it's not actually on there. So was this a sort of an outtake or something? I don't know the occasion for this particular recording. It's okay. You know, it's a classic song we're very familiar with. And it sort of fills out side 1. Do we need Elton singing White Christmas? Maybe not, but it's nice to hear him singing anything, isn't it? So that's my track number 5. So track number 6 is a real classic, this one. It's a Christmas medley that Elton did for a John Peel session on BBC Radio 1. Now, this is Elton sitting at quite a cheesy upright piano, I think, and playing through a few Christmas songs like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, all sorts of things. Now, for those not in the UK, John Peel was a legendary radio presenter here in the UK throughout the sort of 70s, 80s and 90s, and he's credited with launching the careers of many great artists. And he was known for supporting artists in the sort of early days of their careers and giving them airplay. So a great figure. So Elton did this session. I'm not clear on the year, and you may know more about this. Presumably he did some vocal work as well, but he seemed to have just done this medley for a bit of fun. It kind of pays tribute to Mrs. Mills. Now, Elton talks about Mrs. Mills in his autobiography, that she was an early influence on him, the way she sort of played this kind of stride piano sort of style, sort of honky-tonk. It always sounds like the back of a bar or something that you might wander into in part of London. But anyway, it's a bit of fun, so give it a listen. So now we're moving to side 2 of this fantasy album, and our opening track is going to be, of course, the classic Step Into Christmas, which Elton recorded in November 1973. It did well in the UK, number 24, and then it reappeared in 2019. It's written by Elton and Bernie and was recorded in London. We can also see it on some of his collection albums, Rare Masters, To Be Continued, Diamonds. And it's the sort of thing that crops up on those sort of compilation albums for Christmas, doesn't it? So, for instance, here's the Christmas album. I'm sure you've got one of these at home or something similar to that. And when we look on the track listing, track number 5, side 1, is Step Into Christmas. Now, it's got all those other songs on here from Band-Aid. It's got Wizard, Slade, Wham, Mike Oldfield, Gary Glitter, Paul McCartney, Shakin' Stevens, John and Yoko, Greg Lake, Chris de Burgh, Joan Louis, the Beach Boys, Queen, Mud, Johnny Mathis, and of course Bing Crosby. So Elton in pretty good Christmas company there. So interestingly, I read that kind of the aim with this song was to try and create something that may recapture the Phil Spector sound. I've got Phil Spector Christmas album here, and this is absolute classic album. Some beautiful music on here from people like the Ronettes and the Crystals and Darling Love. This is a superbly produced album, so they kind of recreate that sort of mood, and I think they've been fairly successful. This also appears as a bonus track on the 1995 remaster of Caribou, interestingly, that they put it on there. And it's become a classic song. I've already rated it on a previous video. Now, there is another version of this from a 1973 TV show featuring Gilbert O'Sullivan, another artist who's still with us and knocking out songs and touring. Apparently Bernie Taupin played percussion on this one. Now, I've listened to this recording. It sounds very polished to me, almost as if it isn't a live recording. If it is live, it's a brilliant version. But anyway, judge for yourself. I've put that on the playlist as well. Now, track number 2 is going to be Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, played live by Elton at the Hammersmith Odeon in 1973. Now, this has found its way onto the 40th anniversary celebration of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, which of course came out in the same year. It's only about a minute long. Again, it's just a bit of fun. It's kind of Elton daring the audience. He's saying, "Dare I play Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?" They cheer, so he then launches into it. But again, a nice little thing to have. Now, track number 3 is going to be Merry Christmas, Maggie Thatcher. Now, this is a track that Elton wrote for this musical, Billy Elliot. A very successful staging of this story, a musical version. Elton did the music. The book and the lyrics were by Lee Hall. Now, if you don't know the story, it's about a boy who kind of dreams to dance. But the background to it is the miners' strike in the 1980s in the UK, a very bitter time for a lot of communities and a lot of hardship involved. And the song is sort of based on the idea of people sort of hating the government of the time. So they weren't really wishing Merry Christmas to the Prime Minister at the time, Margaret Thatcher. And it also mentions Michael Heseltine, who was another government minister at the time. It's a clever song. It's very well sung by Elton on this particular recording. Or, of course, you can get it as the musical recording from the cast on this CD. Elton's recording of this appears as a bonus track on Peachtree Road, if you're lucky to have that. I think this is a pretty decent song, and it does grow on you. It's very catchy and well written, so I'm going to say it's a good song. Give it 6. Track number 4, I'm slipping in another live version of White Christmas, this time from the Hammersmith Odeon in 1974. It's a Christmas Eve concert that Elton was giving there. We get 3 minutes of this this time. It's quite a rocked up version of White Christmas, maybe not quite in the same sort of blend or feeling as Bing Crosby's version, but again, it's a collector's item and it's nice to have it there. Now, track number 5 is Sausage Rolls for Everyone. Now, bear with me here because this was a comedy version of the Merry Christmas song that Elton did last year with Ed Sheeran. This time it's with a comedian and a British blogger called Lad Baby. The words have been changed. It's not particularly funny, but Elton obviously enters into the spirit of it. The good thing about it is that it was supporting the Trussell Trust, a charity in the UK which supports people using food banks. So a very good cause, and well done to Elton and Ed for supporting this great cause. And it's another little collector's item. It's a deep cut, isn't it? Which us sort of Elton fans need to have because we want everything that he's recorded. Now, track number 6 on this side 2 is going to be Ho Ho Ho, Who'd Be a Turkey at Christmas. This was a 1973 recording, which was the B-side of Step Into Christmas. It's another Bernie Taupin lyric on this. It allegedly comes from the album Lady Samantha, which apparently was a 1980s compilation album, which I don't have. It's just one of these things which were sort of thrown together from different albums and things. It does appear on the Rare Masters double CD. Originally, apparently, came out in 1974 on an 8-track. Now, I'm not familiar with that technology at all. This is kind of pre-cassette days or something. So if you've got one of those, that would be very interesting to have. This sounds a bit like a folk song to me. And if you're familiar with the British folk band Bellowhead, who sing this kind of song, quite rootsy, and some nice lyrics on here about the bearded weirdies just arrived. So they're kind of making fun of the traditional Christmas record. It's quite good fun. They're obviously having a great time doing this, and it's fairly catchy as well. This also appears on the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road 40th celebration. So I'm going to say fairly good for this. Quite enjoyed it. 5 out of 10. Now, track number 7 to finish off the album is going to be from Jump Up, and it's All Quiet on the Western Front. Now, is this a Christmas song? Well, it's got sleigh bells on it at the start, and I can remember Elton playing this shortly before Christmas in a live televised concert in 1982. Now, when we look at the lyrics, which are by Bernie Taupin, There's not really anything that makes reference to Christmas. It's a very moving lyric. This is about the First World War trenches. Um, it's about a youth asleep in the foreign soil planted by the war. Feel the pulse of human blood pouring forth. See the stems of Europe bend under force. It's one of his most powerful lyrics, actually, and it's a very pleasant and engaging setting that Elton's given to this. Now, he was touring before Christmas of the year the album came out, and he did play this live. In fact, I saw him playing this live in a concert in the UK, and he really liked the song. He did. I remember him saying at the time that it was one of the worst selling records he put out, but he still enjoyed playing it. So you could say that this brings the album, this fantasy album, to quite a poignant end. We're perhaps thinking about the future, we're thinking about the need for peace. So I quite like that song and having it on this sort of collection. So just before we close, I just want to make reference to Elton John's Christmas Party album. Now, this was an album that came out in 2005 with 21 tracks, and then again in 2006 with 15 tracks. Now, it's got things on it, including Step Into Christmas and Calling It Christmas with Joss Stone. But the rest of it is a collection of Elton's favourite Christmas songs. So there's all sorts of other artists included in that. Now, initially this came out for Starbucks Coffee Shop, and it was in aid of the Elton John AIDS Foundation. So another good cause being supported there. And then the 2006 version was a general release. Minus 6 of the songs, possibly for rights reasons, we don't really know. So again, a nice collector's item. That I don't have that. If you have that out there, I'd be interested in seeing what you think about that. That's another little Elton Christmas link. So what else can we say about Elton at Christmas? Well, if you're in the UK, you might have seen an advert that the retailer John Lewis put out a few years ago, featuring Elton John and Your Song. It was actually a beautiful advert, very nicely done. It kind of took him back to his childhood, to getting that present of the piano for the first time, touching the chords. Then we saw him sort of playing the song in a sort of an arena much later on in his life. And then it kind of took him back to that piano. And he was sitting there, as he is now, just sort of playing a few notes. And again, really nicely produced advert that. I know it's an advert, but we can admire the skill involved. And Elton was obviously happy to have his song used in that context. It's kind of tribute to the song. So I'll try and link that below as well in case you haven't seen that. Well, that's it from me. Thanks for watching. If you can find any other Elton Christmas links of any sort, either in a lyric or in a song, please put them in the comments below. May I wish you all a very happy Christmas if you celebrate that, or a very happy holiday if you don't. And I'll see you with more music videos in the new year. Don't forget, we're still standing.